In this question we have three different vehicles, A, B, and C, and they are traveling at different speeds. We want to figure out how far they've traveled at various time intervals. So here in this column you see time intervals in a variable of t. That represents minutes. So basically what we want to do is figure out how far vehicle A traveled between 0 minutes and 1 minute, and then 1 minute and 2 minutes, and so on. We want to do that with vehicle B and C as well. So first I'm going to do this by hand, and then I'm going to show you a way to do it quicker in the calculator. So the first thing we want to do is figure out for vehicle A how far it traveled after 0 minutes. Okay, well, all you'd have to do is plug in that time for this variable t here in the equation that represents the distance for vehicle A. So I'm going to start by writing d equals, and then the equation is 1.5 to the t power, and we're plugging in 0 for t, and we got minus 1. So 1.5 to 0 power is 1, and then minus 1 is going to be 0. And we're going to do that for the t equals 1 here. So again, d equals, we've got 1.5 to the first power minus 1. So 1.5 to the first power minus 1 is going to be 0.5. So after 0 minutes we've traveled a total distance of 0, and then after 1 minute we've traveled a total distance of 0.5. So I'm going to put that range right here. So the range distance is going to be from 0 to 0.5, and that's going to be in miles. So anywhere between the start and then a minute, we could be between 0 and 0.5 miles. Alright, moving on to the next one. We've already plugged in 1 here for our t value to get a distance of 0.5, so we don't have to do that again. Now we're going to plug in 2. We'll have d equals 1.5, and now we plug in 2 because it's going to be 2 minutes, and then we subtract 1, and we're going to get 1.25 is an answer. So between 1 and 2 minutes of traveling, we know our distance is going to be anywhere between 0.5 miles and 1.25 miles, anywhere between that range of distances. Okay, now to the next time interval, we know what the distance is after we travel 2 minutes. So now we want to figure out what the distance is when we travel 3 minutes. So we plug in 3 for t, subtract 1 there, and then this is going to be 2.375, and that's going to be in miles as well. So there we go, we did 3. So between 2 and 3 minutes we've traveled, it's going to be 1.25 miles to a maximum of maybe 2.375 miles. In last range for time, so we've already done 3, we want to do 4 minutes now, so I take d and I plug in 4 minutes. Whoop, it should be 5, so I plug in 4 for my t there, we subtract 1, and my last number here is going to be 4.0625. So that means when we travel between 3 to 4 minutes, our distance is going to be anywhere between 2.375 miles and 4.0625 miles. Okay, now that's the long way and the way to do it by hand. I think it helps you understand things better, okay? But now there's a shortcut, alright? And you could plug this equation now for vehicle B into the calculator, and you can pull up the table to figure out all these different values. So I'm going to use Desmos.com as my graphing calculator. Now instead of using d and t, I'm going to use x and y. So I'm going to do y equals 0.5 x to the second power and hit enter. I want to figure out a bunch of values for t now. So I'm going to hit edit list, and I'm going to click convert to table, and then I'm going to have a table that shows up of all my different, well, remember x's are now t's, so it lists all these t values along with the d values that match up with those t values. So if I go back to my problem here, we want to figure out the ranges for when my time, or now x, will be 0 to 4. So back to Desmos. I went from 0 to 4. So I'm going to do 3, hit enter, and then press 4, and then enter. So now I have all my t values and my d values. I'm going to screen capture that and move it back into my problem. So I'm going to cross out these two values right here because we don't need this. Right? That'll be a distraction. And then remember that my first column, which was my x's and Desmos, now it's going to be t for time in minutes, and then the column that was y is d for miles. And we want to put the different ranges of miles here. So from 0 to 1 minute, so from 0 to 1 minute, we go from 0 to 0.5 miles. So that's going to be 0 to 0.5 miles. And then we want to go from 1 minute to 2 minutes. So from 1 minute to 2 minutes, we go from 0.5 to 2. So 0.5 to 2. And then from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, that's going to be 2 miles to 4.5 miles. So we go 2 to 4.5. And then from 3 to 4 minutes, we're going to go from 4.5 miles to 8. And that's the shortcut, right? It's a lot quicker than what we previously did by hand. Now we're going to do that same thing for vehicle C, and we see that the equation for vehicle C is right here. It's d equals 0.5 times t. So I'm going to jump back into Desmos. I'm going to X out this graph. I'm going to plug in my new one. It's going to be y equals 0.5 times x. And I'm going to hit my gear again. It's going to be edit, and I click convert to table. And then remember, we want all my input values to be from 0 to 4. So I have 0, 1, 2. I'm going to click right here to get 3 and hit enter. And then I'll click 4 and enter. And then we have what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and label this, instead of being X, I'm going to label it T, and I'm going to label this right column D. This will be minutes, and then this column will be miles, just like what we had over here. And then I'm going to also cross out -2 and -1 for my minutes because we don't want any negative minutes. And let's go ahead and fill in this column for vehicle C. From 0 to 1 minute, we're going to go from 0 miles to 0.5 miles. And then from 1 minute to 2 minutes, we're going to go 0.5 miles to 1 mile. And then from 2 to 3 minutes, we're going to go 1 to 1.5 miles. And then finally, from 3 to 4 minutes, we're going to travel from 1.5 to 2 miles. Okay, so we have our table filled out, and now we're asking, will the vehicles have traveled the same distance at any point of time? So let's see. We have 0 minutes here, and it looks like we all started at a distance of 0, right? And that's, to be expected. You can't travel anywhere if you haven't started the time yet. And then after 1 minute, it looks like we've traveled a distance of 0.5 for vehicle A, 0.5 for vehicle B, and then 0.5 for vehicle C. So after 1 minute, they've all traveled a half mile. After 2 minutes, vehicle A has gone 1.25 miles. Vehicle B has gone 2 miles, so it's gone a little bit further after 2 minutes. And then vehicle C, it actually has only gone 1 mile. So that didn't travel as far as vehicle A and B. So actually, after 1 minute, these distances were all the same, right? So after 1 minute, we could say that vehicle A, B, and C all traveled the same distance. They'd be at that same point in time. And that might be tough to see on the table. So I'm going to jump back into Desmos real quick, and I'm going to graph all three of these equations. So now I have all three vehicles graphed. Vehicle A is in red, vehicle B is in blue, and vehicle C is in green. The x-axis right here represents t. So I'm going to zoom in here. When t is 0, they're all at the same distance because our y-axis is going to be d for miles. And I'm going to click that, and you can see 0 minutes means 0 distance. Well, going back to my problem here, we said that after 1 minute our distances were all going to be the same. After 1 minute we said that our distances were all going to be 0.5 miles. You can see I circled it here in blue. Let's see when we look at 1 for my t. So that's going to be after 1 minute. I'm zooming in here, and you could clearly see that all these graphs intersect right about there. Okay, so when t is going to be 1, meaning 1 minute, our y value is going to be 0.5, and that represented the miles. Now, part C says over a long period of time, which vehicle travels the farthest and which travels the shortest. Now, at a quick glance, let's see what happens after 4 minutes here. After 4 minutes, circled in green, we know that vehicle A traveled about 4 miles. Vehicle B traveled 8, so that went farther than vehicle A. And then vehicle C, it only traveled 2 miles. So it looks like vehicle B is going to travel the furthest, and that was at 4 minutes. Well, let's jump back to my Desmos graph here. And I want to zoom out because it wanted to know which vehicle will travel the farthest after a long period of time. So if I look at my x-axis here, this represents time. So this is when time was 0. And as we move to the right, for example right here, that's when time is 2. And then here, we know that our time is 4 minutes. Here, our time is 6 minutes. So say we went all the way super far to the right, correct? So I'm going to shift this graph this way. So right here I've got 10 minutes and 20 minutes and 30 minutes and 40 minutes and so on. I want to zoom out. Which graph right here in time is going to be increasing the fastest? So green looks like out of the picture it's going at a consistent rate. After 40 minutes it looks like it only traveled 20 miles. But it looks like the real competition is between the blue graph here, which is vehicle B, and the red graph, which is vehicle A. Well, let's see what it's doing at 10 minutes here. This is 10 minutes. If I move up, right here it looks like they crossed paths right there. At 9.4 minutes, they're both traveled 44.15 miles. And then as they continue to the right, it looks like that the red graph starts to increase faster, and it's going to keep up with that pattern. So vehicle A is going to be going the farthest over the longest period of time. So if I zoom out really far, you can see that, the red one, it's increasing, a lot quicker.